Hi all, it's Rio CloudSync. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing Microsoft 365 Defender for Endpoint, as well as Microsoft Defender for Business. We're going to be looking at how you can adopt both technologies, as well as advocate the security tools. Let's look at Microsoft 365 Defender for Endpoint as a high-level security tool for your organization. Let's look at it reducing your exposure to common threats. If we look at Defender for Endpoint in particular, we'll look at some of the features and functionalities within the toolset. One which resides with us is vulnerability management, making sure we're pushing out the relevant patches to our client machines, as well as attack surface reduction, reducing our overall exposure to common processes. Next generation protection, which is our Microsoft antivirus, as well as endpoint detection and response for that automated investigation. We can also add on the enhanced capability of Microsoft Threat Experts, providing us that automated service to investigate our threats on our behalf, as well as remediate them. If we look at Microsoft Defender as a solution in terms of licensing, there's 2 to 3 common plans. You've got Defender for Endpoint Plan 1, you've got Defender for Endpoint Plan 2, and you've also got the Defender for Endpoint Vulnerability add-on. Defender for Endpoint Plan 1 is included in the Microsoft 365 Enterprise E3 SKU, and Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Plan 2 is included in Microsoft 365 E5 as a base SKU. If we look at Microsoft Business Premium as a SKU itself, you acquire Defender for Business as a small to medium business security solution. With Defender for Business, it scales up to around 300 users. Anything other than that, you probably want to be looking at Microsoft Defender for Endpoint as a solution for your security. The only real difference between the two SKUs, if we look at Defender for Endpoint Plan 1 and Plan 2, is threat analytics for 1, which is in Plan 2 and not in Plan 1, advanced hunting, as well as device discovery. They're kind of your core services which are missing from Plan 1, which you acquire in Plan 2. Defender for Endpoint is here to not just detect when vulnerabilities have been advocated by Microsoft or third parties, but also to protect and conduct that response and investigation off the back of detecting and protecting your end client. If we drill a bit more into the services within Defender for Endpoint, okay, we look at vulnerability management. So what is vulnerability management? In the name, vulnerabilities. We're going to discover vulnerabilities, if that's from malicious processes in the background, if that's from malware or malware infection on your machine, if that's from opening up an application which is trying to fetch details from your local machine. Vulnerability management will assess these processes, make sure they're legitimate, make sure there's no false positives. Okay, learn from behavioural analytics, as well as complete that remediation off the back of that. We can look at attack surface reduction, okay, which is near enough your first line of defence for anything malicious. If we look at it as a Microsoft antivirus solution, in essence, it makes sure your configurations are set correctly. Okay, if you are creating policies, you want to make sure they're set correctly, they suit your business needs and requirements, as well as reducing overall exposure to threat actors. If we drill more into next generation protection, we can look at Microsoft antivirus as a solution, okay, making sure it's in passive mode or non-passive mode, dependent on your organizational structure. It can also detect all types of emerging threats within the Microsoft community and also outside of the Microsoft community. if that's mightier attacks, if that's Nabolium attacks, or if that's just standard FedRAMP attacks. We can acquire the automated investigation. Out of the box now, automated investigation is set to default. Okay, but previously you had to enable automated investigation through the service settings. It also provides you a single pane of glass in terms of your Microsoft Secure Score, where recommendations can be completed, where you're lacking security or security focus. You can also drill down to Secure Score for your devices, making sure the state of your devices are secure, ranging from different operating systems, from Windows 10, Windows 11, Enterprise Pro, different client machines, Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, Linux. Okay. We can integrate this solution into other ticketing tools, or we can integrate it into a SIEM solution, i.e. the likes of Microsoft Sentinel. You can feed all your workload, your tickets, your advanced hunting material into the likes of Microsoft Sentinel as a solution, so you can visualize it in i.e. a playbook, for example. It doesn't just stop there in terms of integrations. You've got Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft Intune, Microsoft Defender Suite in general, so Microsoft Defender for 365, Microsoft Defender for Identity, as well as Defender for Cloud apps. And we've also got the likes of Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business. The reason we look at Defender for Endpoint as a security solution is due to zero trust. There's three principles in zero trust. There's verify, there's use least privilege access, and there's assume breach. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint leverages the assume breach principle within zero trust. It encompasses endpoint behavioral sensors, as well as cloud security analytics and threat intelligence. With Defender for Endpoint now, you can now mix licensing, if that's enterprise SKUs or standalone. You can mix licensing throughout your users and user estate. The way in which you check your license state is you scroll down the left-hand side, you click Settings, Endpoints, and Licensing. And you can see the subscription state for your organization. As it stands, this organization is Microsoft Defender for Business. However, I can upscale to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint through the likes of Defender for Endpoint Plan 2, of which I've got a Microsoft 365 E5 SKU. It doesn't just stop there in terms of onboarding of devices for not just Windows clients, Mac OS, Android, iOS. We can also onboard servers. There's two different ways of onboarding in terms of servers. You can use Defender for Servers Plan 1 or Plan 2, which encompasses the likes of Defender for Cloud. You can also use the likes of Microsoft Defender for Business for servers, which has a limitation of 60 licenses per enterprise sub. When we look at prerequisites in terms of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, we've got a few browser requirements. We've got Microsoft Edge and Google Chrome, which are recommended browsers for use of Defender. We've got some supported Windows versions that are not limited to, which are Windows 11 Enterprise, Windows 10, Windows 10 11 Pro, and Windows 2012 R2+. Data collection is isolated for customer tenants. Okay, your information is backed up into Microsoft Azure as a solution. You set your data residency when you roll into Defender. Okay, and it's encrypted up to a layer of 256-bit AES. Once you've configured your data residency or your data location, this can't be changed. You may have to raise a support ticket if you do indeed need this changed. This also helps you acquire regulations such as the likes of ISO, SOC, FedRAMP, and PCT. When accessing Defender for Endpoint or Defender for Business for the first time, you will need to acquire roles. If that's Global Admin, Security Admin from an Azure Active Directory perspective, Or it could be a role-based access control through the Defender roles. Okay, Defender for Endpoint Administrator, for example, to access the console. You can segment this through Microsoft 365 security groups and allow your users to specify, or administrators to specify, who can access what in terms of the console. That was a general overview in terms of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and Microsoft Defender for Business, in terms of the prerequisites, what Defender for Endpoint is here for, in terms of adding value to your security controls and security team internally. The next video we'll touch upon deployment, and then we'll look at the configuration in terms of policies, if we look at attack surface reduction rules in a bit more detail, some advanced threat hunting, turning on web content filtering, alert suppressions, digging into the incidents and alerts. But hopefully that was a high-level overview in terms of what you need to know prior to engaging into the technologies itself. Any questions, please let me know throughout the comments, but thank you very much.